All right, we're live once more so that we can record this for those who are coming for training. Again, a little bit of light today. We have folks in the air, folks on the ground traveling. We have St. Paul's going all around the world right now from our cenacle. So it's just the four of us here today, Samuel and Italy and Anne and Deepak in United Arab Emirates. But we'll record anyway. And again, the three of you keep me honest here because sometimes I forget what I covered when and where and with whom. So if I start covering the same thing, let me know, and we'll change streams and move ahead. Last time, I believe we had covered everything that I had prepared in the slides in that one presentation for the introduction. I never had a chance to finish, so I'm changing streams and going over to another presentation that has the same material, just directed to a different group of people, but it will accomplish what we want to accomplish. So let me go ahead and share my screen just to make sure we pick up at a point that isn't duplicating too much, and we'll launch right in. So if I recall, we had spoken about why it's time. That it is time to drive out Satan all at once. And we spoke about going lion hunting, if I recall. That we just don't sit around and watch the damage. In fact, Jesus kind of makes reference to this in the diary, where he says, if there's a fire that breaks out, you don't sit around and watch it burn down. You all get your buckets out and you do whatever you can. Why aren't you doing this? So we don't just sit around and watch the lion attack. It's time to go lion hunting. So we spoke about this. I think we spoke about our Blessed Mother calling herself the beautiful ray of the dawn, and how she would drive out the darkness. So I believe we covered that. And I think we left off here of saying that if this is what our Blessed Mother's plan is, if this is what we're doing, what do we do? How do we want to say, yes, Mother, I want to be part of this. I want to help. I want to set this world free. I want to end the madness. And you notice all of that is about others. It's still, hopefully this is coming through over and over and over again. This is not about us. This is about us working with Jesus. That's what the unity prayer is about. Us being called to live with Jesus for others. It's all about learning what love is, living the love of the Trinity, that is not caring about whether we get to heaven, but caring about whether others get to heaven. And let Jesus take care of getting us to heaven because he loves us so much he died for us. So I think that's where we left off, wasn't it? Again, coming down and saying, what is our part?
Yes.
Okay, good. So we'll pick up here.
I think so, yeah.
In this presentation. Let's go right back to when the flame of love first comes on April 13th, 1962. Again, a Fatima Day, one of the 13th of the month. So Mary says, my little Carmelite, so many sins are committed in this country. Help me. Let us save the country. And I know I said that, but I keep on saying it over and over and over again to make sure we get it. It's not save us, not save the church. Let us save the country. This is for everyone. I place a beam of light in your hands. It is the flame of love of my heart. Add your love to this flame and pass it on to others, my little one. She says again, take this flame, my daughter. You are the first one I'm handing it to. It is the flame of love of my heart. Ignite your own heart with it and then pass it on to others. So what is our part? Well, first of all, we just have to receive this gift. And this is important. Sometimes we have to play a little bit of cleanup. We have some wonderful, wonderful evangelists of the flame of love who are not directly associated with the flame of love, but they're familiar with it and they spread it around the world, and it's wonderful. We are thankful for them. We're grateful for them. We want them to continue doing that. But sometimes we have to come back a little bit behind them and say, this is not just about a prayer or not just about a weekly agenda. This is something else. We have to receive this gift of our mother, not just say a prayer to blind Satan. So our part is to make sure that we do receive this gift. We must let her help us to become the holy people we're supposed to be. When she says, add your love to this flame, then our love should be dramatically increasing. We should be looking more and more like our Blessed Mother, who looks entirely like Jesus, who looks entirely like the Father. Right? Jesus comes as the image of the Father. He becomes as the hypostasis. They share this fancy word, Greek word, um, which is the literal translation is the standing under. That which makes one the same, makes one what one is. And Jesus shows us exactly the Father, like he said to Philip, I believe. And Mary shows us what Jesus fully living in someone looks like in someone who is entirely human, not just fully human and fully God. Just fully human and fully God. I think I meant that the other way around, but you know what I mean. Someone who is entirely human, now so filled with grace, Mary, full of grace, that she reflects fully Jesus, who reflects fully the Father, the life and love of the Trinity. And so we've got to start looking like that. This is what we're called to do in the flame of love. So we have to let her help us become the holy people we're supposed to become. We can't shy away from holiness. It's strange how our minds are sometimes flipped around upside down and backwards, that sometimes we almost have an aversion to holiness under the guise of humility, but it's really a false humility, as Jesus holds out, or of a sense of well, I won't need God as much. And as I pointed out before, that was what was the stumbling block for the dogma of the Immaculate Conception. They thought Mary wouldn't need God, and it was Blessed John Duns Scotus who so beautifully pointed out, no, it's just the opposite. Mary being immaculately conceived means she needs God more than anyone. And the holier we become, the more we need God, not the less. So let us rely upon him completely and totally and forget about feeling presumptuous or weird or different or anything else. Let Mary make us holy. Do you think Mary looked like everyone else in her community? Probably not. We talk about the Holy Family, and we think, oh, everybody must have bowed down and thought this is beautiful. No, they probably thought they were weird. I don't know. I'm just guessing, but I can imagine holiness stands out. And I think sometimes in the church we're our own worst enemies, and people think, who do you think you are? What are you trying to be, a saint? Well, yeah. Isn't that what we're all called to be? I'm not
Yeah,
shooting for purgatory.
yeah, exactly.
And again, we don't want to be presumptuous or arrogant or judge other people's spirituality. That would be a disaster. We don't do that either. But don't be held back when people look at you kind of funny because you're actually taking your Christianity seriously and letting Jesus live in you instead of saying, "Oh, I'll stand out. I'll look funny." Oh, you know what? Jesus kind of looked a little different. Pharisees didn't like the way he looked. Who are you trying to be, the Son of God? So we must let our Blessed Mother help us become the holy people we're supposed to be. We must help her become the church full of grace, the church we were always meant to be. This is what we have to do. In fact, this is why Elizabeth had the life she had and why she was called. Earlier on, we spoke about the reason Mary gave Elizabeth of why she was called to be the first to receive the flame of love. Remember, she said that you're a mother. You can understand what this great destruction of families will do, that only a mother could truly understand my sorrows as a mother. That's the reason Mary gave her. But Jesus gave her this reason, which is a little different. And it's to show that holiness is for everyone. Jesus said to her, so that others can realize that they can only possess God if they come far away from all earthly noise. Do not believe this is impossible, because you are a living proof. I placed you in a family setting. Remember, she wanted to become a nun. Twice she wanted to become a nun. But Jesus said no. He said, I placed you in a family setting so others could see how they can and ought to live. You serve both the family and God at the same time. This is one of the things that makes the diary in Elizabeth so accessible. Yes, she's praying a lot. Yes, she's praying for hours, and she's in church, and she's keeping vigil. But she's also feeding the chickens and waiting in the drugstore for the medicine and cooking and cleaning and gardening and doing the laundry and all kinds of things. Everyday life lived in holiness. And this is what Mary is calling us to, a great holiness in the flame of love. And again, it's nothing new. What's new in the flame of love is the urgency and the power. Mary strengthening us to do what we have to do and telling us you can't waste time anymore. But this is what we've always supposed to do. Let's go back to the writings of St. Peter, right? The rock of the church. Let's look at St. Peter and see what he tells us, quoting Leviticus, I believe. And he says, as obedient children, do not be conformed to the former lusts which were yours in your ignorance. This is 1 Peter 1 and verse 14. He says, but like the Holy One who called you, be holy yourselves also in all behavior. All behavior, like waiting at the pharmacy, cooking, cleaning, feeding the chickens, whatever it may be. Be holy also in all behavior, because it is written, you shall be holy, for I am holy. Now, interestingly, this comes from Leviticus, and the Israelites would have understood this in a little different way than us, and that difference is quite revealing. That for the Israelites, they would have said, all right, we must be holy because God is holy and God is with us. He is in the tabernacle. We've seen his the fire on the mountain. We've seen the cloud. We've seen Moses' face shine. God is with us. And so therefore we must be holy. For we Christians, we've gone even a step beyond that. We say we must be holy not because God is with us, because God is in us. Something truly remarkable. He is not dwelling in a tent made by hands. He is dwelling in the work of his hands, in our souls and our bodies. Again, we're not a soul that has a body. We are a body and a soul. That is our being. Body and soul is me. And Jesus lives. We receive the Eucharist. We receive his body and blood. We are holy because Jesus is holy, and it is Jesus who is within us. Just utterly, utterly remarkable. So the flame of love is here to bring about holiness as the effect of grace. That is the effect that grace has, to make people holy. Sometimes grace is given to us to help make other people holy, like the gifts of the Spirit that help bring people and strengthen them in the church. And sometimes grace is given to us to make us holy, like sanctifying grace and actual grace. But that's the effect of grace. It's to make people holy. That's why we want the effect of grace to flood all of humanity, because that holiness will drive out Satan. So we must be part of this tremendous miracle that our Blessed Mother is doing. We spoke about how this miracle is different. This is not a miracle in the sun, or a miracle in the tilma, or a miracle in the water. This is the miracle in the depth of hearts, we being made holy. And it's not in extraordinary things, it's in ordinary things. Well, which Teresa that was. Was that Saint Therese of Lisieux? To know extraordinary things, just ordinary things with extraordinary love.
Oh, yes. It's
Right?
all centuries.
Yep.
Yes.
And we're part of this miracle. We are a living part of this miracle. Instead of the sun dancing and going away, we are part of this continuous distributed miracle. Mary says, I'm confirming there has never been anything like this before. This is my billion acts of love that fill the world and light it all over the place. I'm thinking, just because I have this big LED light over my head here, that's probably making me look like I've got giant shadows. We use it for filming when I put the green screen up. But if you think of it, we used to have the incandescent bulbs, right? The one bulb, and you get a little bit of light. And now what do we have? These LEDs. But do you ever open one up and you just see it's all these little LEDs all over the place that all light together to produce this hugely bright light at low cost and great longevity? Well, in a sense, that's a bit like our Blessed Mother's miracle is. It's not one incandescent bulb that just gets bigger and bigger until it burns out. It's all of these little millions of acts of love that spread all over the world that are lighting up. This is the miracle. And it's for all of us, whoever we are, wherever we are, every time we yield to the movement of grace in our lives, every time we let grace have its effect in our life, we are part of this miracle. We demonstrate in our lives the effect of grace that we're praying for. That's what we do. But again, this is for us. How do we come back to the idea of how do we spread this to others? So this is what we're doing. What is the intersection now as we begin to spread this to others? So let's speak a little bit. Let's see what time we are. We always seem to run run a little short here. I'll try to maybe go through this section and then we'll wrap up and continue again next time. But let's take a look in the diary and learn from the diary rather than making assumptions about how the flame of love is spread. Right, so we see we have to become holy. We have to be part of the miracle. But again, how do we spread this to everyone? That's the goal. The flame of love lighting in all hearts, those filled with hate, those who despise Jesus, those whose lamps have gone out, those who don't have lamps. How do we light it everywhere? There is not one right way to do this. We see several different ways in which the flame of love is lit when we look at the diary. 2 days after the flame of love comes, we have this from our Blessed Mother. She says, take 2 little candles, light up your little candle first, and then the other one from it, and then pass it on to my beloved Son, who will spread it among my 12 most devout souls. So we see an actual ceremony of this passing of the flame. For those of you who are celebrating a Candlemas celebration, the Feast of the Flame of Love, and are doing something special, this can be a beautiful part of it. And again, there's not one right way to do it. I know the United States had a beautiful long meditation that we often pray in the flame of love. Some people, it's a quick prayer. There's not a right way. And as we're going to see, you don't even have to be in the same place as the person and about a specific person. But in this case, we do. And I'll pass along to you what Elizabeth's grandson, Jesus, described what they do in Hungary. And it's quite beautiful. And I've tended to do this now and whenever I have a conference. And it's a deeply moving ceremony as a way of passing the flame of love. And so we asked him, because we had people asking us, how do you pass the flame of love? Do you have to say this prayer? Do you have to do this thing? And here's how he replied. He said, there is a formal event of the passing of the flame of love annually on February 2nd. Well, I should put this in context. Before that, because we're talking about the ceremony, he said there are all kinds of different ways the flame of love is passed. So I don't want you to think this is how Jesus said is the only way to pass it. He said there's all kinds of ways to do this, but this is what we do with the ceremony. He says there is a formal event of the passing of the flame of love annually on February 2nd, the Feast of the Flame of Love. And the same external form of commitment is present at the end of Flame of Love missions. The process is as follows. One by one, the congregation, the faithful believers, with a candle in everyone's hand, goes in front of the priest or the leader, who lights the candle of every committed man from the burning candle in his own hand. Okay, so this is not like the Easter Vigil where we pass it to each other. This is more like a communion line. We come up and each one receives this flame from the priest or from the leader, who lights the candle of every committed man from the burning candle in his own hand, repeating to everyone the words of Our Lady to Elizabeth. Take this flame that I give you. It is the flame of love of my heart. Set fire to yours and pass it on. And this was interesting. He said before that, it is important to make the participants aware that these are the words of Our Lady. Therefore, the mission is received from Our Lady herself to be apostles of the outpouring of the flame of love. So here is one way, by an actual ceremony, and we see this precedent in the diary. But it's not the only way. Right? We see the flame of love can be received remotely, on one's deathbed. This is important to understand because sometimes we get obsessed with how we have to do this with the person standing next to us and what do we have to give them, what do they have to do. Look at this, October 9th, 1962. This is a beautiful passage that I think gives so much hope to every parent who is concerned about their children who may have left the faith. And Jesus said to Elizabeth, when you are in heaven, and from up there you contemplate the death of one of your children, You will be by his bed. Your drop of oil, remember this oil that is squeezed from our sacrifices, from our sufferings, from our willingness to join Jesus on the cross. Your drop of oil will fall on the empty lamp, and the flame of love of the Blessed Virgin will be lit. This great outpouring of graces will save souls from damnation. So there's a couple of important things to note here. For one, for parents who are struggling with this, don't be discouraged. You notice Jesus is talking to Elizabeth, and he's almost giving her a bit of a prophecy that for some of her children, they will be on their deathbed, and their lamp will still be empty. She may have been praying for them, interceding for them, sacrificing all her life, and the lamps are still empty all the way to the point of death. But remember, Jesus said, if I don't work in the lives of those you're praying for, wouldn't I be working against my own plan of salvation? So even to that point, Jesus intervenes, our Blessed Mother intervenes, and because of Elizabeth's willingness to live this life and give herself over for the salvation of souls, even at that point, her child, who has not returned to the faith all the way to their deathbed, will come to salvation. And notice they are on their deathbed. They're not reading a diary. They're not sitting in a cenacle. They don't have a prayer card. They're dying. And the flame of love lights in their hearts. We also see the flame of love being spread remotely again by our sacrifices. This is May 30th, 1965. Blessed Mother says something that Jesus had said a couple of years earlier to Elizabeth, almost the same thing. She says, after your death, my little one, your place will be next to me. Your drops of oil gathered on earth, by which your lifetime of sacrifices, my divine Son, united with his merits, will fall back upon the extinguished lamps of the souls and will ignite them by my flame of love. So notice what we do on earth here continues to have value even in heaven. But you notice again, it's about this lifetime of sacrifices. And as we've mentioned, this is not buying a hair shirt, buying a Sellers, beating ourselves until we're bloody. This is choosing the worst banana. This is taking the smallest piece of pie. This is changing the toilet paper roll, as we mentioned. This is all the little acts of love that sacrifice living for ourselves to live for other instead. All of those will continue to have value, eternal value in heaven, and fall back on earth to the extinguished lamps of souls, and they will ignite them by my flame of love. At its light, they will find the way that leads to salvation. And these drops of oil will fall also on the souls that have no lamp, and they too will know the cause for this, and they will come to my divine Son. Again, where is Elizabeth? She's in heaven. What has she done? She's sacrificed. What do these people have? They don't have a diary. They don't have a prayer card. They're not in a cenacle. They're living lives separated from God, and suddenly something lights in them to draw them to salvation. This is another way in which the flame of love is spread. We also see the flame of love being spread remotely again by our prayers and our desires. This is a case where Elizabeth has gone to another diocese at our Blessed Mother's request to talk to the bishop, and it goes very well. But she's in a different church, a place where she isn't normally. And she writes, at the Mass of Dawn, the Blessed Virgin got my attention. Mary said, look at the two little children sitting in front of you. I looked up and saw two thin children. Since the Blessed Virgin called my attention, I looked at them for a while. They were well behaved. Their clothing was poor, but arranged with care. The Blessed Virgin continued, my little one, because of your desires, I breathe the grace of my flame of love over these two children. Look at them. Pray for them. They are favored in a special way by my flame of love. She writes, when I heard that the Blessed Virgin, through my intercession, breathed the flame of love of her heart on these children, I began to sob. My mother, how kind you are. I kept sobbing during the whole Mass. How many graces she is pouring out on us. So again, notice a couple of points. For one, it comes to little children. Flame of love is for children. Please make sure the flame of love gets to our children. They need our Blessed Mother. They need this power of grace. They need our Lord in their lives driving out evil. They have to go lion hunting too. And this is how powerful grace is. Our little children, empowered by grace, defeat Satan himself. That's how powerful grace is. So notice it comes to children, but also notice how. Because Elizabeth is desiring that they receive it, because she's praying that they receive it. Again, they don't have a prayer card, they don't have a diary, they're not in a cenacle. There's prayer and there's desire, and our Blessed Mother gets to work and lights the flame of love in the hearts of these children. So we have this very critical passage from the handwritten diary. We have most of it in our blue diary, but there's a little extra here. I think this is where we'll conclude, because I don't want to keep people late again as we pray. But I do want to wrap up here, because this is perhaps the single most important point I can make on this topic. This is happening at about the same time. Oh, hi, Lobos. Welcome. So this is happening at about the same time as she goes away to this diocese. She comes back. Before she had left, our Blessed Mother had told her to go to this priest and share with him these messages about the flame of love. And Elizabeth really didn't want to do that. Maria Remete is a huge shrine, very important shrine in Hungary. Today, it's very supportive of the flame of love, but back then it was not. And she just didn't want more rejection. You know, how painful that is. And so now she comes back from this trip where we just talked about those two children, and she goes back to the priest. So in the church at Maria Remete, I went to that priest to whom I had given the Blessed Virgin's messages a week ago. He said he had read them twice, but did not understand them. I was very amazed by this and would have liked to say eloquent words about the Blessed Virgin's flame of love, but I strained in vain. No thoughts came to mind, nor words to my lips. I thought, how can one not understand this? I think a lot of us have probably had this experience. How can one not understand this? When I left the confessional, there's a slot I cut out here. It really doesn't go very well. You read in the handwritten diary how bad this conversation goes. She's really upset. When I left the confessional, the thought that he didn't understand it hurt even more. I prayed to the Blessed Virgin, my mother, the one to whom you sent me, doesn't understand your flame of love. I asked the Holy Spirit to enlighten him and let the effect of grace of the Blessed Virgin's flame of love permeate him as it did me. So we're going to continue. There's more to this reading, but I want to point out that notice it's not about knowledge. The priest has the knowledge, but the flame of love has not permeated his soul. What is Elizabeth praying for? Not that he'd understand the messages, but that the flame of love would permeate him. Remember, I said our part is to receive this, not just to say prayers and think that these prayers have magic powers. We don't do magic in the church. Instead, the flame of love needs to permeate our souls, just like Elizabeth is praying for this priest. But it continues. So she goes home and she's miserable. You read in her handwritten diary how she wants to cry out to the passersby about how upset she is. She comes to the house and she's singing songs so the children don't realize how upset she is. She's praying the evening office to our Lord and just saying, Lord, I don't know what's going on. You know what's going on. She's really upset. And the next day, our Blessed Mother comes and says this. She writes, the Blessed Virgin's words acted like illuminating goodness in my soul. My little daughter, why did you exert yourself? Why did you try to speak eloquent words on behalf of my flame of love? Keep in mind your function, suffering. And remember the words my Holy Son said, endure suffering and bring constant sacrifices. This is our part, this living this life of grace, of always sacrificing self for other, always living love. That's our part. Now, I left out on the way home, Satan was on her too. So it wasn't just she felt lousy. Satan was telling her, the priest is smart, you're stupid, give this up. Why are you making all these sacrifices? It's all in vain. He's on her too. And so our Blessed Mother assures her, and she says, keep in mind your function. What's your part? Suffering. And remember the words my Holy Son said, endure suffering and bring constant sacrifices. Right? Christians don't take a vacation from love. We don't say, I'm going to be a Christian for this week, but next week I want a break. I'm going to live for myself. Christians never take a vacation from love. Bring constant sacrifices. Your sufferings are not in vain. But who is to understand my flame of love and how is not your business. How interesting. Who is to understand my flame of love and how is not your business. Little instrument, and she falls on this a little later, right? Instruments don't have a will of their own. The pen isn't in the hand of the one who's doing the writing. The pen doesn't do the writing themselves. Little instrument. Don't be surprised that you couldn't say eloquent words. I'm the one who acts, and I'm the one who lights the flame of my love in the depth of hearts. So, in other words, here, we do our part and she does her part. Okay, our part, as we've seen in spreading the flame of love, is prayer, sacrifice, desire, labor where we can. Yeah, we can hand out a prayer card, a diary, talk to people. We do that. But that's not all. Prayer, sacrifice, desire, labor. That's our part. Then let our Blessed Mother do her part. We do our part, she does her part, and then watch what happens. So there's more on this, but this will make a good bridge. We'll return to this topic next week. Oh, next week, Saturday. Actually, I won't be here, so go ahead and meet. Well, don't need to record this, but I won't be here. I'll be down in Washington, D.C., which is a great invitation. But go ahead and meet and pray, and I'll come back the week after that. But we'll pick it up again next time and continue with this very important topic. So I can't emphasize this enough. The flame of love is not spread just by one method. It is not just about prayer groups and prayer cards and diaries, although those are very important and very powerful. It's so big. We do our part, she does her part. Remember our part. Prayer, sacrifice, desire, and labor. Don't hold this flame back. Don't try to control it. Do our part. Let our Blessed Mother get to work. So, with that, I know we're running a bit late, but any thoughts or questions, inspirations, ideas, disagreements on what we've covered today?
May I add something?
Oh, Lubosh, I can't hear you. It looks like you're trying to speak, but I can't hear.
Yes, perhaps. Just give me a second. Perhaps
Okay.
now?
Yeah, it's very, very faint. I can hear it now, but just very faintly.
All right. So I switch to different.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
It's still pretty faint.
Right. And how about now?
I can hear you, but it's faint. You might need to click on the giving instructions here online. You might want to click on you if you see where the microphone is for muting. There's a little arrow, and you can choose which microphone you're using. It might be set to the wrong microphone, or it might be your microphone headset. I think is way up. You might want to pull it down to your mouth.
Hmm. No, no, it's right there. Can you hear me now?
Look, we'll listen hard.
All right. That's it. If you can't hear me, it
No, it's better before.
doesn't matter.
But we can hear. We'll listen. Just put the microphone back down and we'll listen carefully.
Can you hear something?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I just need to add something because I found out that Mary said to Elizabeth that she would know when she will meet the first priest.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes uh, we will know what gonna happen if Mary wants us to know. That's my understanding. And in that moment, Elizabeth wasn't ready to know something. So that's why Mary said to her, "This is not your business." And they said accordingly uh, to our understanding this information, other information, in that text that you had previous on the monitor. Perhaps you can put it back so we
Sure.
can see, all of us, what's the difference. But who is to understand my flame of love, and how is not your business. So Mary says in different words, if I say you will understand, you will, but till then you will not.
Hmm.
And this is not our business to know when we gonna know, right?
Hmm.
This is my understanding of this. Because if we are in God's will, and if we do what we should do, and God is happy with us, He will know us. He will let us know what He's thinking, like to different saints throughout the world. Even now, um, He says something what is important to know to some people, and they tell us what to do.
Yeah. So, though sometimes it's interesting in Elizabeth's life, and many times you find in the diary, as I think you've already pointed out, Jesus doesn't. Sometimes he says, "I lift the veil just a moment to let you see," and then he brings down this curtain of doubts and darkness. And Elizabeth perseveres in her love. So yeah, sometimes he makes it known, like you say, and other times he intentionally doesn't, because then she needs to trust and to persevere. Yeah. Yes.
Because
Anything
we
else?
need to suffer and to struggle. That's
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we can't offer anything.
Anything else from anyone before we head into prayer?
No, we shall contemplate on this.
Yeah, this is a lot. This is a key turning point to
Yeah.
make sure that we recognize this is not up to us.
It's not up to us.
We have our part to play, and our part is
Yeah.
important, and our part is the heart of Christianity. Mary is not asking us to do something new. She's asking us to do what we were supposed to be doing all along. Live a life that's completely poured out for souls, completely lived for others. Live our Christianity, and Mary will use that to bring about the triumph of her heart. We do our part, she does her part. Let's not try to control this. Let's try to keep feeding this flame and let our Blessed Mother get to work.
We'll be her instrument.
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.